Hello and welcome to Let Loose episode 10, Breeders' Cup Look Ahead edition number 2. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatale. So happy to be back with you far from the Brooklyn bunker. Today, we are in a conference room at the Keeneland Sales Pavilion right here on the grounds at Keeneland. So psyched to have been out here the last couple mornings watching these horses for the Breeders' Cup work, and very happy to be here with you to talk all about it. And to do that with me, I bring in the regular co-host of this program, coming to us also in Keeneland. I think he's at an undisclosed location. Is that right? But he's still from and repping the planet Texas, talking, of course, about the People's Champion, Jonathon Kinchen. What's up, JK?
I'm at the Prince of Keeneland's house. I'm in the basement. I'm sure there's a white rose picture back here. Thank you, Jake Ballas, for letting me post up. But yeah, I'm here and everything's going good. I'm a little bit concerned about going over to Keeneland. Are the green coats there? Are they going to mess with me about my attire?
Not your attire, but you have to have exactly the right credential to get in the right room. I have already been thwarted by a couple of green coats, but we got it all sorted out. JK, we're going to be talking in a minute about these Friday Breeders' Cup races. But before we get into that, I want to talk about this Twin Spires offer code promotion we've got going on. Great opportunity for both new and current account holders with the Breeders' Cup Bet Back promotion. Get your bet back if your horse runs second or third in any race at Keeneland on Friday or Saturday. That's, of course, the 6th and 7th of November, the 2 days of the Breeders' Cup. You get your bet back up to 20 if your selection runs second. If your selection runs third, you get up to $10 back. Opt-in is required for it. It won't appear unless you opt in, but very easy to do just that through the Twin Spires app or twinspires.com. You're hearing this promotion, JK. Is there a horse right away running on Friday that pops into your head that you might want to take advantage of that type of promotion on? A runner you're really looking forward to betting that you wouldn't mind getting some cash back if the horse doesn't quite get the job done and runs second or third?
I think Golden Pals, it's what do you do with those bets? Do you bet a horse with big odds and take that kind of freebie? Or do you take a short price horse and kind of double up your money and make that money real? I like to make the money real, and I would go with Golden Pal. I think he's the most likely winner on Friday. What he did at Saratoga obviously was pretty impressive, and I think that's where I would go with it.
Well, that segues perfectly into our first topic. Topic 1, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. And you've already tipped your hand so that you like Golden Pal in this spot. So I'll ask you this. The draw, getting the far outside, the 14, do you see that as a positive, a negative, or a neutral for Golden Pal?
Yeah, I think it's a positive, and I think we'll talk a little bit about the 14 post probably in our next video. It doesn't bother me at all when it's the best horse. I think it actually allows these talented racehorses to not have to worry about getting a trip. The worst thing that can happen to them is they can be 3 or 4 wide. That's the worst thing that can happen, and when you're having the best horse, I'm okay with that. A horse that I feel like would win the race if they started in a staggered situation by 2 lengths anyways, well, what does it matter if he's a little bit wide? I think that he'll make up for that in his talent. And I feel the same way about the big horse Vekoma on Saturday as well.
We'll get to that. Important to note, you're talking, I think, about one-turn race when you talk about the being 3 wide, not necessarily the worst thing in the world, not necessarily the case going a bit longer. But I happen to agree with you. The sprint can be a bit roughly run at the beginning. And the other thing about the 14 post for Golden Pal is that there's no horse to the outside to potentially cause trouble and cut over. I think he's got enough natural speed that he should be able to clear and get away from there. I'm with you. I think Golden Pal is one of the likeliest winners of the 2 days, and I'm psyched to see what he does, hoping he can put on a little bit of a show in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Let's move on to our second topic, JK. It's the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, and this is a race that we've seen the foreign contingent have an awful lot of success in over the years. Very curious to know, are you going to be looking to overseas to produce the winner of this race, or do you think the domestic runners might have the edge this year?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to look to see, and this is not a shameless plug at all, but you did a fantastic job with the podcast you did with Nick Luck that's on the In the Money Media Network. And I listened to that on the plane yesterday, and he answered every question about all of these Europeans that are in here. Seal Away obviously is an interesting horse from that figure standpoint. Nick made some great points about the ground that day, and what do you make of that and what the ground's going to be here. I think that this race will be won by a Euro. Seal Away, Cadillac. I think Battleground feels like a horse is going to be completely overbet because of the pedigree. And so I'm going to look kind of elsewhere in that arena. As far as the Americans go, the only one that really gets me excited is Public Sector. He's Irish bred, obviously. He's a horse that I thought ran well enough in his 2 starts. He closed into a slow pace last time. So if there's that structure, that kind of Chad Brown, like, oh, hey, by the way, that guy Chad can train a turf horse. If you forget that for a second, I think this is one that you'd want to keep in mind. But I feel like this race is a Euro race, while the fillies turf race, I think, might be the Americans.
We'll get to that in a minute. I have to put in a word for new mandate, JK. The more I look at this new bay gelding trained by Rafe Beckett, the more interested I am. Has this highly progressive look, really isn't behind Battleground on form. And now I don't think we can take this morning line too seriously. But if we do, this would be bet of the year type stuff to get 12-1 on new mandate. No less of a form expert than Rob Dove, one of the top 10 pro punters in the UK today, has already taken 15-2 on new mandate. So if we can get double-digit odds, this is a place where I'm going to take a stand. I think you make a great case about Chad's runner, Public Sector, in here. What do you make of Mutasa Beck? This is a horse so visually impressive last time. Another I'm considering leaving in my multi-race bets. Curious that you didn't mention this one.
Yeah, I got a setup last time, and when you get the setup last time, and I don't like to bet you this time, I felt like that's what happened with that horse. But I think there's 2 important points we have to make. One, if you're at home watching and you're playing, is PTF going to talk about Rob Dove when we're talking about the European races? Bingo, you have won. Congratulations. Also, I wanted to say that I want to shout out to Rafe, spelt Ralph. I heard that on the podcast. My father's name was Ralph, and him recently passing. We got to give a little shout out to Rafe. My dad will be he'll be rooting for that one. I can guarantee that.
That's awesome. Definitely got to give props to the great Ralph Kinchen. Gone too soon and will be sorely missed. And I like the hunch play, JK. You're going to have to bet a little bit extra on that one. Let's move on to our 8th race on the day. Obviously, the Grade 1 action continues. It's the Breeders' Cup, and now we've got the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies. Got to be the most divisive horse at this year's Breeders' Cup in Princess Noor. Certainly drew well on the outside. What's the controversy, you might ask? Well, she's won so visually impressively that a lot of players are thinking that this is another one who's one of the most likely winners of the whole 2 days. Speed figure-oriented players, they're seeing it differently. Randy Moss on our podcast the other day said she doesn't even have to finish in the top 3 just looking at the numbers. Where do you stand on Princess Noor? I think that's the key question in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile fillies.
Well, this is funny. I don't even know if we sat on other ends of the table last night. I don't know if you even had this conversation with you yet, but I was in the same idea. I'm a speed figure guy myself, and when a speed figure is slow, then the horse is typically slow. But I did run into Bob Abbott last night at Jeff Ruby, and I asked him straight up, hey, her figures are really slow. I'm thinking about tossing her. And the look in his eye where he suggested not to do that. Said she's never been out of second gear. He said she's a monster. And of all of the horses we talked about, that was the one that kind of got him going the most. So I'm not really sure exactly what I'm going to do. We had this conversation last night. I think that there's, in a situation like that, when so many sharp people are going to try to beat her, if you can believe the story, then there's a way that you can single her to create value. If you don't believe what Bob said, and he just doesn't know what's going on, then you toss the horse and you make a ton of money because there is going to be people that lean on the horse. The horse is likely the favorite, I think. So I think that I'm not going to get too cute in this race, and I'm going to use her as if her figures were faster, but I am not going to single her or press her. I'm going to use horses like Vequist. Simply Ravishing, I think, is also another one you want to consider in Day Out of the Office. The horses that were running at Belmont and the Frizette, I think, are the ones that you want to try to consider because they are fast on figures.
Day Out of the Office is the one for me, but plenty of backing up with Vequist in that spot. Nothing really against Simply Ravishing. I'm going to probably go down with the anti-Princess Noor ship. It would not be the first time that Bob Baffert stuffed me into a locker at the Breeders' Cup, no less. We'll see what happens. I'm really looking forward to that one, just because I think there's some great drama. And it's not, you said that to Fader is maybe to say Baffert doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't think that's it at all. I just think it's hard. The job of training horses is so different than the job of betting on horses, and they know a ton. He knows a lot more about his filly than I'll ever know. But the game is about assessing risk and taking chances. And I'm going to take the chance that the figures are right, and that's a heavy favorite, which I'm sure she still will be. That's going to run out. We'll see. Maybe not run all the way out, but not win. Let's say it that way. Let's go to race number 9 on Friday. Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf, going a mile, of course, on the Keeneland turf. And you hinted that you have kind of an opinion in here, and that maybe the domestic team has more of a shot. This is a race that Europeans have a little bit of a mixed record in, I'd say. I mean, good, but Chad Brown is really the story of this race with as many times as he's won it. What do you think is going to happen in this year's Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf?
Yeah, back in 2018, I was sitting in Kentucky talking about the Juvenile Fillies Turf and how much I loved a filly that was tactical on the front end type that was by Lope de Vega. And she won, and she was impressive, and she's one of my favorite horses still, newspaper of record. I have a feeling Aunt Pearl might kind of step into that class. I think she's that front-running, tactical Lope de Vega that's going to love a little cut in the ground, which she should get even more cut than what she had last time she ran here at Keeneland, just because of the weather. It's just going to continue to get a little bit softer based on the weather and the way that it unfolds. And I think she's going to be hard to beat in here. Listening to Nick Luck, I never really heard him say anything that got me feeling like one of these juvenile filly turf runners from overseas was one that I needed to be particularly scared about. And I think even and not to give it all away, you should listen to it, but I think he even mentioned, like, he asked you, isn't Aunt Pearl the one that they have to beat in here? And when the Euros start asking if we have the one to beat, we probably have the one to beat.
It's not crazy. I don't know if you consider Campanelle a Euro or a USA horse for the purpose of this discussion. She's the other one for me, along with Aunt Pearl, who I'm most interested in on top in this spot. I know the pedigree doesn't say that Campanelle really wants to go this far, but I think this is in Wesley and critically in Frankie we trust. In the post-race interview after the morning, Frankie specifically mentioned this race, not the sprint that I was thinking was the more logical call. And I can remember back in 2014, a Wesley Ward-trained runner named Hootenanny, who was coming off a win in the morning, coming to, I think it was Santa Anita, and thinking, oh, this one's not going to stay, play against. Hootenanny wins the race. I think Campanelle has a real chance to win this race too, not fading Aunt Pearl one bit. The interesting Euro to me is Udna Data, who listed at 20-1 on the morning line, could be all of that, has looked very, very talented, and could be one who I think might have the quickness to adapt to the conditions of USA racing. A tiny little bit on top, but definitely for underneath with me with Udna Data. Yes, sir.
You have to tell the Mother Earth story. I want people to listen to the podcast, but they're listening to Let Loose. They deserve to hear the story. You have to tell the story about what happened there. I had no idea that happened, and it's very shocking.
It was so crazy. There were horses that were mistaken for one another. And I mean, I just don't know how this happens. It was an honest mistake. There was no gambling coup aspect of it. But Mother Earth originally thought to have run far back in the field to the stablemate. Oh, it turned out she was third in a Group 1. This is a runner who's also a bit divisive. There are people who are very excited about this Zoffany filly. That story about Mother Earth and Snowfall, definitely one worth looking up. Plenty of coverage of that. But she's a little bit interesting, and one I think you wouldn't want to leave out underneath if the prices are what they look like they're going to be. I mean, I'm seeing 20-1 here on the USA morning line. That seems too high and maybe worth reaching out for. More info to come on Mother Earth as the week goes along. But yeah, just absolutely bizarre scenes there with that last race. Let's talk about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, JK, and this is another spot along with the Juvenile Turf Sprint we spoke about earlier, where we could be seeing one of the shortest price favorites of the entire weekend. How are you going to play it?
Yeah, I'm going to lean on Jackie's Warrior pretty heavily and use a little reinvestment risk. We talked about it on our podcast earlier this week, the Monster Pod we did. That the only real question here is how Jackie's Warrior is going to handle the 2 turns and what that actually means. I don't think that the distance of the 2 turns is the problem. The fact is that Jackie's Warrior has been exceptional going around 1 turn, being able to use that weapon that he has. And I said he, I didn't say she. I thought I was going to. If there's an issue with the first turn kind of slowing him down and taking away that weapon, I do think there's a world in which reinvestment risk could turn the tables. Reinvestment risk is clearly second best around 1 turn to Jackie's Warrior, but the 2-turn question is one that you'll have to figure out. Those are the only 2 I'm interested in. The rest of them can kick rocks. Those 2 are the best in this field, and Jackie's Warrior is without a doubt the most, probably the most trustworthy dirt winner of the entire weekend.
I feel that Essential Quality may have just crossed you off his holiday card list, JK. Let's talk about race design in this race, because I think the draw was interesting here. If you're associated with reinvestment risk and now you're drawn inside Jackie's Warrior, you've played the game of trying to stalk him twice. You've gotten a good result, but you haven't gotten near him. Maybe not gotten near isn't fair, but you haven't really, you haven't looked like you were going to beat him at any point. Do you think about sending from the inside, going around 2 turns with reinvestment risk, or do you keep the same strategy and let Jackie's Warrior go out there and do his thing and hope that he just doesn't run his race and you get a different result this time, 2-turn dynamics or whatever else might cause it?
I'll never argue with connections that decide to send from an inside post. City of Light did it successfully, and you can name 100 horses that have done it. I don't think that that's what they would want to do with this situation. Jackie's Warrior has handled this horse a couple of times. So I think what you would want to do is maybe just break away from their running, try to get a forward position and hope someone goes with Jackie's Warrior to hook Jackie's Warrior and hope that Jackie's Warrior comes back to you. I think that you have to try to play it that way. I think that taking it to Jackie's Warrior, you're really reducing the options and the chances that you have of winning. If you just take back, there's a lot of other things that can go your way. So I would take back. I wouldn't press, and I don't say that very often.
In your horizontal play, what percentage of your tickets will be using the 3 reinvestment risk, and what percentage will be using the 7 Jackie's Warrior?
Yeah, I would say like 70%. A majority of it I want to have on Jackie's Warrior, and then some interesting kind of saver types, essentially kind of putting me in the same position based on what the odds are going to be. I think that Jackie's Warrior will be a pretty heavy favorite, and reinvestment risk will be a shorter price. And so the difference in how much money I'll be putting through those 2 horses will reflect their odds, where it would seem that they would kind of be the same for me no matter who won.
That makes perfect sense. The old Dutch principle. We're going to get to your best bet, best play you're most excited about on day 1. But first, I want to revisit the TwinSpires offer code promotion. Great opportunity, as we mentioned, for new and current account holders. We love that with this bet back promotion. You get your bet back if your horse runs 2nd or 3rd in any race at Keeneland, not just the Breeders' Cup races, on this Friday the 6th and Saturday the 7th. Up to $20 back if you run 2nd. If you run 3rd, up to $10 back. You do have to opt in. Very easy to do from the offers screen on twinspires.com or through the TwinSpires app. You may even get a push notification from the TwinSpires app on how to do this. JK, you will be playing in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. Still some opportunities for folks to qualify for that great event, by the way. But you'll be playing. Where do you see making a stand on Friday? Which race are you the most excited about, or which potentially play are you most excited about, given that you can play doubles in that event?
Yeah, I guess doing something towards Jackie's Warrior and Golden Pal is an interesting idea, but I don't feel like it's one of those, on a Friday, I'll go all in on a Friday. I've done that a couple of times, but I feel like maybe I'll just kind of get some minimums out of the way, betting those horses to win. A lot of people will bet show bets to get minimums out of the way. I think I'll probably bet Golden Pal to win for a minimum. Probably bet Jackie's Warrior to win for a minimum. And try maybe Aunt Pearl for a minimum. Just bet those horses to win. Hope that a couple of them do, and that I can wake up on Saturday morning with $7,500. I don't have a terribly strong opinion on Friday.
Okay, that makes sense. You get through day 1, and you have a chance to fight for all the marbles on day 2. For me, at the prices we've seen so far, the horse I'm most interested in is New Mandate. Even if it's closer to that UK price, I think that's going to offer some very good value. So there are our thoughts on the first day of the Breeders' Cup. We'll be back a little bit later in the week with more stuff. And, you can always catch an array of content, including the Euro show we've mentioned several times over at inthemoneypodcast.com, where you can also find Naomi Tucker's latest show, Talk Racing to Me, where she sits down with Vanessa Binney-Ryle, giving her thoughts. I mean, there is some great stuff on the Euros over at that site. Great stuff happening on twinspires.com. Been working with Ed DeRosa talking Euros as well. We'll get everybody up to speed and hopefully find all the winners. Well, maybe not all the winners, but just enough winners over these 2 days of the Breeders' Cup. That's going to do it. Thank you, JK. Thanks to our friends at Betting on Content. Thanks to twinspires.com. May you win all your photos.